Somehow Palpatine returned.
Will I see you again?
Wookiees stand out
In a media landscape obsessed with remembering,
Hope.
Hello there. Obi-Wan talk.
obsessed with safe,
I am what remains.
Andor dares to forget, dares to rebel against the system that made it.
Sorry, what?
It's no secret that movies and TV are dominated by IP sequels, legacy sequels,
We're home.
reboots of reboots, and remakes of things that came out 10 years ago and aged like milk left in a rental car. This isn't inherently a bad thing, and honestly it's partially our fault. 10 out of the 10 highest grossing films of 2024 were sequels, spin-offs, or franchise entries. And some of them, they were great movies. Dune.
Silence!
We told them this is what we want, this is how to make money. And they listened. In 2025, about 70% of major studio releases were tied to pre-existing IP, and 9 out of the 10 highest grossing films were connected IP, with the exception of F1, which I mean, come on. And it's not because they're guaranteed cash cows anymore, they're not, but because the gamble is slightly less suicidal than funding something new. Movies are expensive, really expensive, and Wall Street doesn't care if your film is meaningful. It cares if it's marketable. IP is pre-awareness. IP is brand recognition. It's marketing on autopilot. You don't need to sell someone on what Ghostbusters is, you just need to tell them it's back.
That's a gunner seat?
CEOs such as David Zaslav and Bob Iger don't talk about stories, they talk about product lines. Not myth, not art. Product, inventory, streams.
The array of content that we have.
Some of the greatest IP in the world.
We get significantly more content.
We've been hyper-focused on our balance sheet and hyper-focused on taking advantage of the fact that we have great content.
I would argue this specific model I'm talking about exploded after Iron Man in 2008, when Marvel realized continuity wasn't just for comic nerds. It was a business strategy. By the mid-2010s, if your movie didn't have a sequel, spin-off, or a prequel, or a post-credit tease, then it was basically a financial liability. And audiences, we went with it. Because we're exhausted, we're burnt out, we're broke. And sometimes the cinematic equivalent of comfort food is all we've got left. Movies used to be an escape, now they're stability. In a weird way, the Marvel Cinematic Universe became our monoculture religion. New entries were sermons, post-credit scenes were scripture. We want something familiar, something guaranteed. Sometimes when the world is falling apart, watching a familiar face punch a CGI monster is all the brainpower we can spare. I was there, I grew up with Marvel when it was at its peak, and it was awesome. I remember when The Force Awakens came out, I loved it.
Nothing will stand in our way.
I was the guy on Reddit at 2 a.m. dissecting every theory from the latest post-credit scene. It was communal, it was thrilling, it felt like being a part of something. But here's the thing. The returns are shrinking. The Flash bombed, Fantastic Beasts 3 bombed, Indiana Jones 5 barely cracked the whip and broke even. Even Pixar, the once golden standard, is struggling to return the magic. Sequel fatigue is real. It worked in the 2010s, it printed money, but now, the tits have dried up, but they're still on both knees trying to squeeze out one last omelet. It's all a blur now. We're no longer watching stories, we're watching brands self-replicate. So now we're stuck in a loop. Audiences want something fresh, but the studios only greenlight originals from directors who have already proven themselves inside the system. Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig, Ryan Coogler, all brilliant, but they had to earn their blank check by making billion-dollar franchise films first. So how do you break the loop? How do you make something bold and human in a system allergic to risk? Well, you don't pitch an original, you Trojan Horse it. You dress it up like another cog in the IP machine, and then let it detonate from the inside. You make Andor.
You weren't deferential to the Star Wars, the Vatican, as it were. You kind of came at it as a writer first and less as a worshiper at the altar of all things Star Wars.
Yes, I have fed my family through disrespect of IP.
Now what the hell do I mean when I say anti-IP inside of IP? Because let's be honest, it's still Star Wars at the end of the day. It's streaming on one of your 50 plus streaming services, Disney Plus, desperately begging to remain one of the subscriptions you haven't canceled yet. And how does it do that? By flashing its oversized stomach of IP. You open Disney Plus, what do you see? Avatars from your favorite IP. You click past that, what do you get? Categories of IP. Star Wars, Pixar, The Simpsons, Marvel, Disney Originals, and National Geographic for some reason. Andor is a cog in that machine, but is that bad? Is it good? I don't know. All I know is that it's damn good TV. It's a Star Wars show that doesn't open on Tatooine for the 400th time. No twin suns, no deep-faked Luke Skywalker, no epic lightsaber hallway moment. No Skywalkers, no Millennium Falcon, no John Williams music cue dropping like it has any right being there except to tickle your nerd G-spot. And goddamn it, does it work. And I'm not saying these are bad. I love lightsabers. I love John Williams and Tatooine, but like, didn't Star Wars start with in a galaxy far, far away? Because lately it's been feeling more like in a few planets just a little bit far away. Andor doesn't try and sell you on nostalgia. It doesn't ask for your loyalty. It dares you to actually care. It stands on its own 2 feet instead of hobbling on the ones who came before. Andor is the purest Star Wars has been since it left George Lucas's hands. It's trying to say something, trying to be something. Say what you will about the prequels, but George Lucas dared to do something new. He explored new themes, new planets and characters. He took a risk. He could have sat on his holy trilogy that changed cinema, played it safe, and maybe people would have liked it more, but he didn't. Yeah, the prequels are full of callbacks. Andor is a prequel too, but I think people didn't jive with the prequels when they came out because they were new, because they were different. And Andor seeks to do the same, to explore the galaxy, to expand the galaxy. Did I just compare Andor and the prequels together and say the prequels are good? Yes, but hopefully you don't hate me and get what I'm putting down. Let's dissect some good old-fashioned filmmaking. Let's talk about Season 2, Episode 2. Not from one of the episodes everyone gushes about, but from something much quieter, much simpler. There's a scene in here, just a conversation, no blasters, no heist, no space magic, a very normal scene. Absolutely nothing flashy or dazzling about it. And yet, listen to the writing.
I don't want the Gorman project.
It flows like music,
I've thought it through
measured,
all night,
careful.
and I don't want it.
Humbling, isn't it? Both of us reminded of our place in the chain of command.
I'm not sure I know what you mean, sir.
Did Krennic offer you the job?
You know that he did.
Then it's done. We're in it.
And what about Axis? That's where I belong.
Pulsing with conflict that doesn't need to shout to be felt.
You invested almost 2 years. You built the legend and delivered almost nothing.
We're getting closer all the time.
He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. He's nowhere. Next time, catch them first, then make them famous.
There's no dramatic lighting or soaring strings, no grand declarations. Just 2 people walking and talking.
This will appear to be a demotion. You'll have to play the part. It will heat up soon enough. This is good news, Dedra. Gorman will be yours to run as you wish. You'll only answer to Krennic, and he's got no time for anything but results.
No context, no fanfare, and it's riveting.
Gorman is a gift. Take it. Then win it.
Here's a version of the same scene stripped down to pure exposition.
I don't want the Gorman project.
Why?
I want to stay on Axis.
You've been there 2 years now and nothing has come of it.
But we're close.
We haven't found him, so no, you're not close. This is a promotion, Dedra, so take it. Totally serviceable. Gets the job done. You got conflict, you got stakes, decisions. Check, check, check. But it's not fun. It's not delicious. Now let's look how Andor handles it. We open on a wide establishing shot. Pretty standard, but look at it. Texture, depth, lived in Star Wars design. Extras roaming like real people, not glorified background animations. It feels alive. We cut to a reverse shot, our character's mid-walk. We see Dedra's hesitation, the slight pause before she speaks. And just like that, the camera pauses too, like we're eavesdropping. The next cut is so simple, but so freaking good, I don't have a fancy breakdown for it. It just feels right, smooth, intentional, invisible. We land in a low medium over the shoulder shot, not a close-up like most OTA setups, but a wider one. Why? Because we need to see where they are, who's around, what they're discussing is classified, and the world around them isn't just a backdrop, it's a variable. Here's the subtle genius. Dedra's shot has a slight low angle, but the officer's, remind me his name, stays neutral. It's not shouting power and balance, but it's hinting at one. They're technically equals at this point, but the gravity of the conversation is shifting. And the editing, smooth as hell. It moves with the cadence of the dialogue, never cutting too early, never lingering too long. It breathes like music. Then comes the turn. He scolds Dedra.
Catch them first, then make them famous.
She's felled. The edit cuts in super close. A subtle, slightly over the head close-up. We're in her bubble now, but looking down on her. The framing mirrors this shift in control. Then we pull back to the wide as they check their surroundings. And then boom, we're back into the bubble. But now there's something new.
This is good news, Dedra.
A gift.
Gorman will be yours to run as you wish.
A second
answer
chance.
to Krennic, and he's got no time for anything but results.
Even their placement in the frame is deliberate. Dedra slightly left, him slightly right. Balanced, but not equal. Most of the time you just put them on opposite thirds, but not here. It's a push, pull of power inside the rectangle.
Gorman is a gift.
And this isn't even touching on the acting or the set or the costuming, sound design, and music. Every single scene in Andor is dressed to the nines, but in such a quiet way you almost miss it. Because polish is the baseline. Craft is assumed. This is a simple scene, one from one of the lowest rated episodes, which isn't really that low below for Andor, but it's an example of a show that understands its tools and uses them like a scalpel. Nothing here is revolutionary. It's just the fundamentals: blocking, meaningful coverage, pacing, executed with clarity, control, and purpose. And to be honest, that's something we've lost in modern filmmaking, especially in modern Star Wars. So much of what we get now feels like a blender of coverage in front of a green screen, or now, for Star Wars, the volume, that no one knows how to use properly except Greg Fraser apparently. Slapped together in post, serving scenes that never had rhythm to begin with, or just there so someone could play with their action figures in real life. But Andor, it moves like a symphony. It listens to itself. It respects silence. It's mindful. Andor is a masterclass in control. Every shot, every cut, every pause. The blocking, the color, the composition, it's all intentional. Not just beautiful, but meaningful. It feels like everyone on the crew knew exactly what story they were telling. And that's rare, and it's awesome to watch.
Every single person is working at the top of their game.
Deeply creative, brilliant people, all in one boat, rowing together.
Now we've talked about the how, the precision of the writing, the shot choices, the rhythm of the editing, but that only matters because of what? Because of why it's being done. It has something to say.
And I would rather die trying to take them down than giving them what they want.
It's using film not to dazzle, but to whisper truths. Because underneath all this polish, this isn't just a story about spies and shootouts. It's about the quiet birth of rebellion and what it means to hope when hope is dangerous. It's not just well made, it's timely, terrifyingly timely, and somehow still hopeful. So let's talk about the real reason Andor matters. Let's talk about its themes.
We need to pull together, Saw. Whatever our final version of success looks like, there's no chance any of us can make it real on our own. We need the Empire to help. We need them angry. We need them coming down hard. Oppression breeds rebellion.
Andor isn't about rebellion. You know, the iconic one with the ideals and the Death Star run? It's about the prequel to belief. The slow, bitter fermentation of resistance before anyone starts waving a flag. It's not sexy, it's a bruised, back alley kind of rebellion. A show about why people rebel, and not in the grand sunset speech kind of way, but the quiet, gritted teeth kind of way. Because rebellions don't start with hope. They start with grief, with fear and frustration so deep that they become an ulcer. In Andor, we see rebellion as a last resort, because the Empire doesn't crush people. The system doesn't crush people. It numbs them. It makes them accept less and call it more. Call it peace. Bix tortured and left behind. Kino a factory supervisor who realizes the system has no exit.
How many guards on each level?
Never more than 12.
Marva who says fight the Empire, not with the blaster in her hand, but in a funeral speech.
Fight the Empire!
It's not a revolution of ideology or creed. It's a revolution of accumulated pain. And maybe that's the point. Rebellion doesn't begin with a cause. It begins when people start to feel again.
The Empire has been choking us so slowly we're starting not to notice. The time has come to force their hand.
The most dangerous part of fascism isn't violence, which yes is terrible and shouldn't be tolerated. It's normalcy. Andor understands that tyranny doesn't usually arrive with a scream. It arrives with a sigh and a stack of paperwork.
On a positive note, I was impressed with your detention numbers from Sev Tok. Far above the quota.
It shows a world where most people don't even notice the Empire tightening its grip because it tightens it slowly. Just enough to make things uncomfortable. Enough where you don't scream. The people keep their heads down, eyes not towards the stars but towards our shoes. They rationalize. It's bad. Sure, but imagine how much worse it could be. They say I'm just doing my job, I'm not the one making the decisions. Sound familiar? From the corporate boardrooms to cubicles at the ISB, Andor shows us the fuel of authoritarianism and how it survives.
We made the story, we shaped it, we blew it up, we decided when it was over.
Delegation of blame.
With the right ideas, planted in the right markets, in the right sequence, we can now weaponize this galactic opinion.
It's Dedra and Cyril, a million functionaries enforcing policies they didn't write but refused to question because questioning is bad for the pension plan. Even Mon Mothma is caught in the gears, trying to be a good person inside a machine specifically designed to redact moral accountability. Everyone is just doing their best inside a system that views best as total compliance. The most haunting thing about the Empire isn't that it's evil, it's that it's efficient. It doesn't need you to love it, it just needs your silence. And if you look around, the resemblance to our own world is a bit too on the nose for comfort, isn't it? We've watched in real time policies framed as temporary that have become permanent fixtures.
The Emperor will be convening an emergency session of the Senate to propose a legislation package of bills and amendments.
This legislation is essential not only to pursuing and punishing terrorists,
that will free our hands in all matters of surveillance, search, and seizure,
but also preventing more atrocities in the hands of the evil ones.
Norms shattered, then swept under the rug, abuses dismissed as unfortunate exceptions rather than systematic features. Each step defended not as good, but as necessary.
Get these people off the streets!
I will declare a national emergency at our southern border.
Till eventually, the unthinkable becomes the unremarkable. Till how it is replaces how it should be. Not in a galaxy far, far away, but here, now.
Service to the Empire. You just said it. Can one ever be too aggressive in preserving order?
There's no Palpatine backing from a throne in Andor. There's no Sith Lords twirling lightsabers or declaring unlimited power while wearing a cape that definitely requires a lot of dry cleaning. There's Dedra, there's Cyril, there's middle manager agonizing over prison quotas like he's trying to hit quarterly sales. And that's infinitely more terrifying because it reminds us that systems are just ghosts until a human being gives them a body. It's not evil on its own, they're upheld by humans. And most people don't wake up, look in the mirror and think, I'm gonna be a galactic prick today. They wake up wanting to matter in a universe that couldn't care less about their existence. Dedra isn't a monster, she's just the smartest cookie in the room with a high work ethic. Cyril isn't a villain, he's a lonely man looking for a heavenly dad's approval in the form of a crisp uniform and a mapped out chain of command.
Best of luck to us all.
Even Kino starts as a rule enforcer until he realizes the rules are lies.
Off program!
These aren't caricatures. They aren't them, they're us. And perchancely, that's the most bitter pill Andor forces us to swallow. The rule to the galaxy isn't a sick-as-hell red lightsaber. It's order without compassion, purpose without self-reflection, the pull of a system that offers you a role when you feel small. When the machine gives you a role, most people take it. It's easier to be a cog and enforce a quota than to be a person. At the end of the day, you have to put blue milk on the table, and the Empire is the only one hiring.
Remember this. Freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy.
Hope isn't a feeling in Andor, it's a tactic, the most powerful one.
I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
In most Star Wars media, hope is this glowing, shiny thing, something you either have or you don't. And it can be that. It is that sometimes, but here, hope is earned. It's planted, cultivated, weaponized.
I mean, it's so confusing, isn't it? So much going wrong, so much to say, and all of it happening so quickly. The pace of repression outstrips our ability to understand it, and that is the real trick of the Imperial thought machine. It's easier to hide behind 40 atrocities than a single incident.
Take one of the show's most beloved characters, Nemik. His manifesto doesn't offer warm platitudes or laugh. It offers clarity. It names the Empire for what it is. A system that doesn't take freedom all at once, it erodes it by inches.
The Imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks. It leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that.
Nemik's writing isn't motivational, it's activating. Because in a system built to keep you small, just believing in a better world is rebellion. That's hope.
I know this. The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege. Remember this. Try.
Cassian doesn't begin with hope. He begins with survival, like most of us do, just trying to get by in a world that makes that feel like a crime. But hope finds him, slowly. Through Nemik, through Kino.
I can't swim!
Through Marva, hope becomes a virus. And that's what terrifies the Empire. That's why they hang people in the square, that's why they ban speeches, that's why they listen. Because hope spreads. And when it doesn't make people feel warm and fuzzy. It makes them dangerous, unmanageable. This isn't just fiction. I Have a Dream wasn't just poetry. It was treated as a threat. The FBI surveilled Dr. King for years, not because of what he said, but because people started believing him. The Black Panthers fed kids, organized communities, and monitored police brutality. J. Edgar Hoover called them the greatest threat to eternal security. The system didn't destroy them because they were violent. It destroyed them because they had hope with a plan. The LGBTQ+ rights movement has long been framed as a threat, not because it seeks to hurt anyone, but because it dares to imagine a more inclusive world. Peaceful pride marches met with riot gear. Activists surveilled, arrested, demonized.
You will not replace us!
Today, books by queer, Black, Indigenous, or immigrant authors are being banned, not because they're dangerous, but because they give kids a language to understand injustice. It gives them tools to imagine something better. And the system doesn't fear difference.
We'll never ever surrender to the woke mob.
You can put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
And the radical left thugs that live like vermin.
It fears solidarity. Student protests from Vietnam to Palestine are labeled riots, terrorism,
outside agitators.
But it's just young people believing they can change things. In that belief, it's treated like sedation. Even the contrast between BLM protests and January 6th made this point loud and clear. BLM was met with National Guard, rubber bullets, and tear gas. January 6th got selfies and delayed backup.
Overran the Capitol! We're in the fucking Capitol, bro!
Because not all hope scares the system equally.
Amen! Amen!
Some hope wants to burn it down for power. But the kind that threatens real change, the kind that imagines justice, the kind that spreads, that's the hope they fear. The Empire doesn't shoot hope because it's naive. It shoots hope because it spreads. The system doesn't fear your anger.
Give in to your anger.
It loves your anger.
With each passing moment, you make yourself more my servant.
Anger is easy to pivot, easy to turn against your neighbor. What the system fears is solidarity. It fears the moment we stop looking at each other as competitor for crumbs and start looking at the baker. They want you to fear, want you to be angry at one another because, as a wise someone once said,
"Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering."
Mm-hmm.